All right, we are here with Karen Baskett. Thank you so much for joining us here. Karen and I met via Facebook.
Yeah.
She attended a familiarization retreat at Sattva land in Belize recently, and we're gonna get into that. And I know there's a lot of people that are very interested in this. So we've done this sort of thing before. We put out a notice about an event like this, but I've never had this much positive reaction. I mean, it's like we had so many people. We probably had 15, 20 people that expressed interest in going on this retreat. So I want them to hear from you since a lot of them were not able to attend, and and really let people know about you because you're such an interesting person and have such an amazing background. I just tell people about Karen Basket. They're going to love this.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ron. I really appreciate the time to sit down with you and talk about this. I am, like you said, I still feel that glow from the
Yeah,
experience. I just got back on Friday and we're recording this on a Monday. So I'm still really filled with so much love and gratitude from it. So this is a good time for us to sit down and do this.
yeah.
So I am Karen Baskett, and I live now in Placencia, Belize, which is one of the reasons why it made it easy for me to attend because I do already live here in
Yeah.
Belize. But I just moved down here in September from Seattle, Washington, where I had lived for 20 years. And during that time, I mostly worked as a professional dancer and as a dance teacher, running a dance studio there in Seattle called Exit Space School of Dance. Shout out to all my friends there. So, yeah, sort of had a retirement from that of sorts. Sold my house, sold my car, sold my things, said goodbye, and came down here and with the goal of wanting to really move more towards a community of people who were interested in healing through community and through good foods and spices and the sea and the sun. I just found myself for my own healing too. I moved down here for my own health benefits, I guess I should say. But then also, I have a couple of degrees that made me very interested in this place. And the first is my bachelor's degree in botany, which I ended up getting from Northern Arizona University. And it's an emphasis in ethnobotany, which is the way plants are used for medicine or for economic gain, right?
Mhm.
So I worked at that time in Flagstaff alongside a lot of local healers, medicine men, and herbalists. And then as I sort of moved my way into the arts and I was a dancer for a while, I found myself being called back to it during COVID when I couldn't teach, when the studios were closed, right? And I found myself being called to it for the things I was going through. And then ended up finding a master's degree program online through a college called Maharishi International University and started that program and graduated in. Oh, that's my dog Disco. You're going to hear them in the background. I graduated.
It's a
Yeah,
cutest little pug. I mean,
I know.
a beautiful dog. I mean,
I know. He's
yeah,
amazing, and he's named after a type of music that I love as a DJ, so I know, he gets so excited around this time too, when everybody's coming home from work, he can hear the traffic outside, he's like,
yeah,
"Ah." Yes, but, ended up getting my master's degree in Ayurvedic medicine. Uh, it's an integrative medicine degree, so I'm not sure how much you know about Ayurveda, but I didn't know much about it at all when I started, I hadn't heard about it, at all,
mhm,
and except for all my herbal medicine training, but I'd never knew that Ayurveda was a thing, and come to find out that's how people in India align themselves with nature, and that's how they use spices and foods at a very young age to understand what they need in their bodies, but we're not really taught that,
yeah,
in the US. So once I started learning the information, I was like, wow, I started applying it. I started feeling better. I started telling my friends and my mom and my relatives all about it. And then I was like, okay, I really need to open a business doing this. So I opened Glow Ayurveda LLC in 2023. And so I've been spending the last year with a one-on-one practice, mostly working with women. Typically, I've worked with men too, but most of my clients are women, and they're typically battling some sort of chronic issue. I have clients with MS, I have clients with lupus and endometriosis, and working with women who are no longer finding success in Western medicine alone,
Hmm.
and they're searching for another alternative.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened to me. I had a few things I was dealing with, and come to find out, I needed to have a more holistic view of what was going on, meaning I needed to look at the how I was thinking every day, the patterns of my thoughts, and then like the routine of my behaviors. What time do I go to sleep really? And what time am I even eating a meal? Like those kinds of things. And then it was the diet stuff, what not to eat. And once I started paying attention to those things in my own life, things started to really shift. And so then when I support people doing it for themselves, it's not like I'm a healer and I'm bestowing some magic potion on you. It's just I'm awakening that part of you that really knows, right? I know when I eat pizza, as
Yeah.
someone who has asthma, cheese is just a no-go for me. But I'm like, well, but I like cannolis, or I love a
Right.
good cheesecake, right? But I know I'm gonna suffer for at least a couple days. I'm gonna be stuffed up, I won't be able to breathe well. And so it's like that kind of stuff. It's like taking
Right.
accountability, right? So I found that it's really powerful to bring it into these spaces where we can all talk about it and we can learn about the view of Ayurveda, which is literally translated as the science of life in Sanskrit. So it's like it's just the science. Like if I have a lot of heat inside, I'm not going to eat spicy food, or else
Hmm.
I'm going to have a bad result, right?
Hmm.
And we don't have to talk about what that might look like, but we know that it might not be good, right? So
Right.
then it's like, oh shoot, if I'm dry all the time and I'm burpy and gassy all the time, well, maybe I should eat some things that maybe aren't quite as dry. Maybe cut down on raw things or dry crackers. If I'm eating crackers every day, well, you're going to be dry, right?
Right.
Just the science of what we do, right? So I found it really powerful. And I'm so excited to be here in Belize because as I'm looking out my window, the sun is setting. It's about almost 4:30 here.
Right.
Sun is starting to set. And I'm looking out at moringa trees, and there's a soursop tree and a mango tree over here, and herbs and vegetables and fruits that are so life bringing,
Yeah.
that we can only really get in capsule form in the US, right? Or in dried form.
Right.
Um, so that's like blowing my mind. And so I'm thinking of all these ways to bring all this stuff together, with what I do in Ayurveda, with what I do with dance and movement. And then
Yeah.
I'm also a DJ, a house music DJ, which is sort of a random other thing that I do, but
Promo skater
I
as
am
well.
also a figure skater, yeah, competitive figure skater and hockey player and skier. I'm an overachiever, right? And that is a very classic example of someone who has a lot of fire in them.
Uh-huh.
Whereas my pits of people in the house, we are very driven, we are very organized, we are typically the ones who are outgoing and vibrant and enthusiastic and community builders, right? Because we're just like fired up, right?
Right.
So yes, I've done a lot, a lot of things. My DJ name is Hyacinth.
Oh,
I've been DJ Hyacinth since I lived in New York City, since 2000, actually. It's so crazy to think about that. I'm aging myself, but disco is talking up.
yeah.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to incorporating those kinds of services. My new business here in Belize, after many iterations and trying to determine like what the best name is going to be, I've settled on Amplify Healing Arts,
Yeah.
and it's going to encompass everything that I do. So it's going to encompass the Ayurvedic side. It's going to encompass the movement that I do, instruction and yoga. I have a Yin Yoga certification as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then the DJ environments that I create can be really energetic or really mellow. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to craft a new business venture that will still be under the Alpenglow umbrella. But that way, if people come down and they want to have a retreat and they want someone that can come in from
Mhm.
Belize that's local and bring spices and local experience and
Yeah.
Ayurvedic knowledge and maybe throw a little dance party, get people moving a little bit, then I'm your girl, right?
Awesome.
So yes, we can talk about that a little bit more later when we talk about Sattva, but that's, I guess, me.
Wow. Very, very fun, very interesting. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so you were in Belize for the first time last year. Is that right?
No, so I met a friend in the program at MIU. We were all online during COVID.
Okay.
And, sometimes we all have our videos off and you don't really get to see people when you're on Zoom all the time. And then we had our very first clinical where you have to go Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, the whole art of it is that you use your first three fingers as a practitioner on the pulse to understand what's happening in the organ systems inside.
Okay.
So it's a
Okay.
really major part of our education, the super important part. And
Yeah.
here we were like in our houses, only taking our own pulses, being like, I don't know, am I doing this right? Like, I have no idea. So when we finally got to go to Iowa for our very first clinical, I met her and she lives here. And she said, oh, well, I live in Belize. And I was like, you do? And she said, you can visit anytime. And I was like, I can. So I was like, I'm a month from now, I'll be there. She was like, great, come on down. So I stayed with her for a week. That was in 2022. And
Okay.
then 2023 came and I said, you think I want to come for 2 weeks? She was like, great. She's like, why don't we do a retreat when you come down? She's very experienced in retreats herself and has a store here. And so she said, why don't you come into the store and we'll do a 3-day event for Belizean women? And we did this, event that included yoga and breath work and meditation and education. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, so this is what life could be like. And I had it in the back of my mind. And then one thing happened after another, and I was able to come down here full time and just make the jump and do my own healing, my own business. I just was like, it kept calling in the back of my mind. If you've been to Belize or you've been down to the Caribbean at all, you understand the very real pull of the Caribbean to your heartstrings, right? And I just was like, this is a great time in my life. The timing is right. And so I just decided to jump in. So
That's great. And then the
yeah,
universe brought us together.
I know
We-
that's so great.
Yeah.
It's
And
so great. And it's funny because my friend, had also worked with Sam in previous experiences.
mhm,
And so she had been talking about Sattva land before. And I think because we were talking near my phone, sponsored ads will get you that way sometimes, right? And
right.
sure enough, that next evening, I was sweeping around on my phone, and I saw your ad, and I thought, "Well, look at that! Like, would
Yeah.
not be? It's literally right there." And for me, it was a no brainer. As you know, we
Yeah.
chatted for maybe a couple back and forth, and I was like, "Where do I pay? Give me the link. Like, what do I do?" It
I'm
was
so,
like
so glad that it worked out.
sold.
It's so amazing. We really want to hear all about that experience. Kind of walk us through
Yeah.
what was that like. I mean, such amazing people there, Sam and Julia and the family. It's Walk us through. Give us a first
I'm
time.
just getting goosebumps, like, thinking about it. So that's just. Well, so it's right off of the Hummingbird Highway, which runs from sort of the southern part up into the Mayan Mountains. So as
Mm,
you're driving up, it's just the trees start to change, and you see the forest. You see palm trees in the forest naturally. It's a very unique experience for someone who's coming from Seattle, right?
yeah, right.
So you're struck by the sheer lushness of where you are. And as you kind of go up the road and you go through their gate and you sort of descend down onto the property, it's really what they've done in 10 years is create a botanical garden with structures inside it, right?
Right.
There's such a attention to detail around connection to nature and maintaining structures that flow with it. That's immediately I was like, yes, as a botanist, as someone who appreciates plants and the presence of them
Mhm,
everywhere, right? I was like, oh,
mhm.
this is so good. I was
Yeah.
immediately greeted by Carmine, who's Julia's dad, and then, of
Mm,
course, he has his wife, Pina, there, and
right.
they have brought in their both their daughters, their son, they all have, homes there. It's this
Right.
beautiful family experience. And then as you go down, there's the hub where is the main kitchen, and then above that is the open yoga space, which is just I can't even explain the gorgeousness and importance of that kind of a space that is
Right.
screened in.
Yes.
There's a screen around it, right? It's so important in the jungle. But then also in that area, they have this natural pool that's fed by the waterfall that comes down the mountainside. So the
Mhm.
water is cool and refreshing, and they've built rocks out. So the whole swimming pool is filled with what you would find in a river, right? So you might have like little tiny fishes in there, or algae, or sometimes this weekend there were lotus flowers blooming everywhere, white ones, purple ones, yellow ones. They were everywhere next to me on the edge of the poolside while I was swimming. And Oso, who is Julia and Sam's son, will tell you I was very curious to know if this was common. There were oranges floating in the water because there are orange farms just up the river. And when
Mm.
storms come, they shake the oranges loose and they tumble down the water. So I was like, is this an added touch? You just put oranges in the water to me? But yes, it was so nice because, it does get warm there, but it was cool at night. It was
Mm.
probably 65 degrees at night, which
Yeah.
for me, being in Placencia, where it's typically in the 80s, right? Even at nighttime, it can be pretty warm. That was a very distinct difference, was
Mm.
the coolness of the mornings, the coolness of the evenings. I actually like needed a blanket at nighttime. I was like, what's this feeling? I feel
Wow.
I feel cool.
Yeah.
My nose is cold when I woke up. I was like, this is great. So that was a really nice, yeah. They have a restaurant there right in the hub too. And Melissa, who is a woman who describes understanding food from a very early age. I was talking to her about like who taught her all this knowledge that she has. She's like, I just have figured things out on my own. Vegetarian the whole week. They have chickens on site. So if you want fresh eggs, which I chose to have, you
Mhm.
can, but you don't have to. And they will feed you a vegan cuisine if you want.
Sure.
Um, and everything was exquisite. There was papaya soup with butternut and cinnamon, a warm papaya soup.
Those pictures you sent over,
I
uh,
know.
I was like, "Oh my god."
I know, and I hated to do that to you because you weren't
What?
there, but I had to let you know that I was thinking
Yes.
about you and
Yes.
that this was kind of like what it was,
I felt
right?
so good because they were taking such good care of you.
They really were. I mean, I sat at this single table. Melissa would enter every night or every morning with this plethora of food, right? And as a person who typically does eat meat, I found that it was very easy and I got so full off of everything she offered. Breakfasts were round little oat pancakes with bananas and papaya and watermelon, and chia pudding with granola with fresh orange juice and pineapple juice, and then
Yeah.
fresh cinnamon tea, and then fresh bread with jam made from the berries. Like, I was just like, it was so complete. And it was so satisfying that I found myself being inspired to like push the boundaries a little bit more on what I'm consuming, like diversify a little bit more. I have my like regular things that I like to make. And I was like, okay, a quinoa mint parsley salad with pecans and raisins and lime juice is totally doable for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then every time I say that and I look at the picture of what it looked like, I'm like, yeah, that sounds so much better than like a frozen pizza, which is typically right. Than the things that I'm like typically drawn to do that are convenient. I'm like, oh, like, and she would explain it. So those were the kinds of things that just made it feel different than being at a resort, right? Where everything, I don't know. And also there was this element too, like of the natural connection. There were no air conditioners, right? Which is a thing for some people when they come to the jungle and it's humid here. People want to be cool immediately. And you might be in front of a fan, but you can go swim in the pool, right? There are
Yeah.
things you can do, but you might not find an air conditioner for several miles,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
that can be shocking to some people. But, uh, having lived here before I went, that helped.
Yeah.
But if I had just gotten off the plane and like dropped there and I'd been like, wait, what? Like, because I'm a hot person anyway, but
Mhm.
eventually it felt just right. It cooled you off at night, and you had all these opportunities to eat well and sleep well and rest well, and that made such a difference.
Yeah. And it sounds like the the sound bath was an experience you were telling me earlier. Describe
Yes.
that
So
sounds
Julie, yes. Okay, yes. So I don't know how much experience everyone who will be watching this might have with sound baths, but when we walked into this space, there were several yoga mats. There were 5 of us there, and it was myself and then 4 other people from the community, basically that live on the highway
yeah.
around the property. So we were all there, and then Julie was in the center. She had her gong set up behind her, hung from a natural piece of wood. And then on the floor, she had several quartz bowls, Tibetan singing bowls. She had an instrument that sort of sounded a little bit like an accordion might, but with a different result. She had something that had a big circular instrument that had tiny little beads inside that really kind of mimicked the water when she moved it around. She had chimes. She had all these different things, and her voice, which
Yeah.
is like an angel from heaven, that just really, when your eyes are closed and you're supported with pillows and a blanket, and you're listening to the sounds of the jungle, first of all, which are like a sound bath in itself, right?
Right.
But your head's positioned at the apex of the sound bath so that you can receive all of its benefits, right? And vibration, as they found, I just read this article where they're creating targeted therapies from sound vibration alone to target cancers, to target just with sound vibration. So
Right.
as a group, you're sitting there as a community being elevated. Again, I have goosebumps. Ah! You're being elevated as a group, right? By this person that's driving that energetic flow, right?
Wow.
And she's been doing them long enough to where they're, and I understand this as a DJ too. You pick songs that are harmonious, right? You wouldn't pick a slow R&B song and then like a jammin' like jungle song, right? Your nervous system would be shaken, right? And from the sound baths that I've had and watching people grow through them, other sound practitioners that I know that it takes a while to find that sweet spot and that confidence in yourself to make choices based on what the room needs,
Mm.
right? If somebody comes in and their energy is gross or heavy or off or sad or distracting, then that might shift the gear of the sound bath,
Sure.
right? But she was amongst all these, our hearts were so full for that experience and for her and for each other that it was like just elevated it. And that too happened in the cacao ceremony that we did at the end because they were singing in that too. And Sam
Right.
had his guitar and they were singing these songs about the four, oh, it was the jungle, the ocean, the desert, and the forest. I mean, I just was like,
Yeah.
I just was so in love with myself through the connection of nature and them. It was so well guided. And I
Oh,
think too, their experience in, Sam has experience in tour guiding through like hiking guiding and climbing
right.
guiding, and
Right.
then also in restaurants and the hospitality. And Julia has all this background in medicinal healing and the knowledge of plants and where they come from. And so there's this like synergy between them, sort of a corny word, but there's this real synergy between them where they can create these cohesive experiences really seamlessly. And Sam he didn't know me before any of this, right? So he's just kind of like, "Does this sound good? Does this schedule sound good?" And I was like, "It does," right? And then we left a little bit of time so that I could give them a couple of Ayurvedic readings. So I gifted them both in their home, which was really special. And they
Uh,
got to be in the room for each other's readings, which is really powerful as a partner to hear that about your partner. So we had time in the schedule for me to give that to them,
right.
which felt really good.
That's
Yeah. So yes, the sound bath, the guidance, the cacao ceremony was beautiful because I didn't know this about them, but they have a chocolate company,
right.
Dragon Chocolate. Did you know this about them? So, and then they were like, "Well, yeah, this is the cacao that you're drinking is our processed cacao."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh,
Right.
can you guys be any more pertinent? Are you serious?" But they know who harvested it. They know when it was harvested. They know how to process it. They literally created it for us right there. They told us stories about it. We took it into our senses, we took it into our heart, and
Mm.
we let it speak to us in the ways that we specifically needed. And then we took a little moment to write down some thoughts, and we shared it with each other or didn't. And that was really powerful. I think a lot of the pictures after that, my eyes are red because I was just like feeling so much.
Yeah.
And I was only there for what, 4 days, 3 nights.
Right. Right.
So I can just imagine the transformations that would occur in a 5 night, 7 night, man.
Well, now you know why we call this one of our hidden gems.
Yes, I do. Yes,
Well, we want people to experience this,
we
and
really
this
do.
is really what it's all about. And it's so amazing hearing you, what your experience. It's incredible.
Thank you.
It's incredible, and I'm so glad you're able to have that. And we're going
Me
to have more of it. It's going to become part of your life.
It is going to become a big part of my life. In fact, he was saying that they have a lot for sale still on the property. So if there's anybody who's watching and they're interested, there is one lot for sale, and it does include shares of their business. So reach out to Sam if you're interested. But for me, it wasn't the right investment at this point. But uh, just knowing that someone could have a little like chunk of that,
Yeah,
and live on that property and then have access to all of that in the
yeah.
jungle, amazing.
Did you do some jungle walks? Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yes. So one thing that I know now about Belize is that the rainy season is real. And
Mm.
like I came from Seattle, so
Right.
typically it's like, oh, it's misting outside or it's a little gray, boohoo, I'll put on a coat and off I go, right?
Yeah.
No, there is no putting on a coat and off you go in a torrential jungle downpour. It's different rain, it's different result.
Right.
So I may have ventured into some territories that were oversaturated. I may have sunk my foot pretty far down into some mud, but I was safe the whole time. People knew where I was. They have a little 25-minute, I'd say, little trail that they're still working on, but they have some good step holds in place. But the rivers were pretty high. And
Hmm.
when the rivers are high around here, you just kind of walk through them.
Right.
So though
Right.
my boots got wet, I think up to my ankles, right? But it was a short walk, so it was no big deal. But yes, I absolutely did it. And I found this palm tree. So in the Pacific Northwest, typically when you're hiking, there'll be a sign that says, huge, massive cedar tree ahead, world's largest,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And there was no sign, which I need to tell Sam. He needs to say, like, go see the largest palm tree in your life. But then all of a sudden there was this palm tree. And I was one of the photos I think that I shared with you in that folder, but
Yes.
it's just like it's a fisheye lens photo because I couldn't get it in any other way. It was huge.
Yeah.
I'd say probably a 30-foot palm tree. And the
Wow.
palm fronds were it was just so glorious. I felt like it was a church moment, like when you're in a really beautiful cathedral. It was so special. So then, I definitely went prepared with my bug spray, and I
Yeah.
had a little light, just in case it got dark. But um, that was probably one of my favorite experiences, was just like trekking through the muddy rivers and feeling so accomplished. And then I just jumped, in the swimming pool afterwards.
Nice. So, Karen, talk to us about some of the people that you help. Women with menopause, the just kind of,
Mm.
I want people to really hear this because I heard it earlier and it's really quite fascinating what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So with Ayurveda, it's essentially the medicine that comes from India, right? There's Chinese medicine from China, and the people of India have known this knowledge for a long time. But essentially, it's the way that our bodies' ecosystems behave on the inside. And we're
Mhm.
really familiar with an ecosystem outside, right? Wind and water and fire and those things.
Mhm.
But inside, those things also are at play all the time. And so, what an Ayurvedic practitioner does is they'll read your pulse and they'll help you understand sort of what's happening at the organ level
Mhm.
inside in your tissues.
Mhm.
So, for example, if I feel a lot of heat in the pulse, then I would say stay away from spicy foods, stay away from eating too late, stay away from watching violent films,
Yeah.
right? There's like stay away from angry thoughts and try not to get as much road rage when you're driving, right? Things like that would
Yeah.
really inflame the body, right? So it's about educating people around what their body constitution is, which is very different. I'm very different from you, and we're different from each other. So the Ayurvedic approach considers sort of the natural side of uh, medicine. And then the integrative medicine degree that I have also helps people understand the Western side. So what I find I do the most with my clients is I help them understand the things that they're dealing with. Um, a lot of women don't know really that are suffer from, let's say, endometriosis or MS or rheumatoid. They don't actually know all the time the biological details of what's happening in their body, and so I find I'm sort of educating them about their functions. This is why this is important with the liver because it supports this, right? And so it's
Yeah.
really helping educate, both like what are the things I could be doing with my thoughts, maybe with my behaviors, my routines, and then with my food. That's more the Ayurvedic side. But
Right.
then there's lots of things we can do on the Western side, like get the right blood tests, go see the proper specialists, right? And those two things can be balanced and work together, which is, I think, sort of the next frontier in healing, right?
Yeah.
In Ayurveda, we talk about sort of awakening an inner intelligence where, I'm not necessarily a healer or this sort of magic being. I'm just giving you the knowledge, and then you're going, oh, yeah, yeah, right. I do feel hot when I eat onions, or I can't really process cheese. Huh. Or right, it's like you
Yeah,
start,
it's really,
it really is a knowledge exchange. That's
yeah.
right. And it's not based on a religion. It's not based on uh, your age or your location. It's literally Ayurveda translated in Sanskrit is the science of life. So it's if you're too dry, add more oil. If you're too oily, add more dry. If you're right, it's like too hot, add some more cold, right? It's like
Right.
just balancing those things, but we're not really taught to pay attention to those signals in that way, right? We're taught a little bit more to like look at the symptom and then be like, I'm going to attack the symptom, right?
Mhm.
But if we were to look at the root cause, and typically in Ayurveda, it's the digestive health, the gut strength. Sometimes really intense emotions can affect the body and the health, right? So, and like if you're staying up on screens until 2 a.m. every night, then maybe that's something to look at too, right?
Right.
So it's just about being accountable and sort of accepting that, like, oh, yeah. And especially for my clients that are in menopause, the women that get to that point in their life, and men go through too. There's andropause for men where they go through big hormonal shifts, right? But we get to that part in our life where we're like, huh, right.
Yeah.
The things I used to eat don't work anymore. The way I used to exercise, why isn't it working anymore? And so it's about that knowledge exchange, about that knowledge about self, which
Mhm.
I think we can be really drawn towards marketing ads like, oh, I think I need ashwagandha now. I think I need a magnesium. What type of magnesium do I need? I don't know. I just need it, right?
Right.
Okay, hold on. Don't go to Walmart and clear out the shelves. Let's just hold on. Let's see what you actually need first. Let's go by your blood tests and see what you need first. Do you
Mhm.
actually need calcium? You might not. Do you actually need to be taking that much, right?
Right.
Um, and so it's balancing that without really dismissing any side. It's like, okay, let's maybe customize a roadmap for you,
Mhm.
right? Based on literally where you want to go and where you started.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
it's learning. And when you're learning, you're growing. That's what VSR is all about.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
I love that. And I love that you're helping people connect with both retreat centers because as a facilitator, that's a difficult thing sometimes is to weed through the noise, as it were. There are so many retreat centers now to choose
Mhm.
from. So it's difficult to know which ones really uphold their promise.
Right.
And then as a facilitator, I really feel honored to be on this platform with you and to get a chance to share what I do because it's going to reach a bigger audience
Mhm.
and bring some awareness to the ways in which facilitators can live their lives. You can actually live where you want to live and do this the way that you want to and package experiences in the way that fits your unique skill set. right?
Yeah,
And
and it's
right?
all about collaboration too. The way you're collaborating with Sam
Yeah,
at Land and bringing your skills
yeah.
and their skills together to provide just an amazing experience, whether it be with music or art or all the special skills that you bring. And that's really what it's all about. Basically, combining that, blending that together, and providing an amazing experience for people.
And I will say, if this happens again, which I know it will, and where
Yeah,
we'll have a chance to have more facilitators gather, I
yeah,
think that's the one thing. I did get a chance to meet one woman who is opening, she just bought 12 acres down the road from Sam
mm,
and is starting her own something there. Unsure what yet, but getting
okay,
an art, getting all the plans together. And so that part is what I'm looking forward to next time is
hmm,
when people will come from more parts of the world and we can start creating this network through these events
yes,
of really because it's that special precious time that you have together. Kelly and I went through both the sound bath and the cacao ceremony together, and now we're texting and I
yeah,
feel bonded to her for life, right? And she's just in San
mhm,
Pedro too, so she's not very far. Um, but it's that kind of stuff that I'm really looking forward to seeing that cultivate into fruition.
and the co-creator experience is really wonderful, and people do get to know each other. There's a real opportunity to learn and discover ways to collaborate. We're actually going to have our first annual uh, conference for Via Zara in Palm Springs, and
Oh, cool.
so if you happen to be back in the states, that's going to be a co-creator conference experience and retreat.
Amazing.
So that's going to be cool. And but yeah, just thank you so much for sharing, and thank you. I'm so glad it worked out so well for you.
Me
And
too.
it's
It's a connection that I know is going to continue to reverberate, between us and between Sam and all of us in this retreat world. It's just that energy sharing is so precious, and I appreciate your time.
yeah. Thank you. Awesome.